Welcome to the sixth session of Biodiversity and Conservation. In this module, we will learn how we should conserve biodiversity. There are two ways to conserve biodiversity. They are in situ and ex situ. In situ means the conservation taking place in original place is called as in situ. The process of protecting biodiversity at all its levels by conserving and protecting the whole ecosystem is called as in situ conservation, whereas ex situ meaning off site, the process in which the endangered and the threatened animals are saved by taking urgent measures is called as ex situ. So there are two ways, in situ and ex situ. Let us see the different types of in situ conservations. First is biodiversity hotspot. Hotspot is a very common term to us. It is a place of significance, activity, or dangerous situation. So, biodiversity hotspots are the regions where there is high levels of species richness and high levels of endemism. There are two factors pertaining to hotspots: high levels of species richness and high degree of endemism. Endemism means the species which is confined to that region and cannot be found anywhere else is called as endemism. So in hotspots, we can see high degree of endemism and also high degree of species richness. In the world, there are 34 hotspots, of which 3 hotspots in our country are Western Ghats and Sri Lanka, Indo-Burma and Himalaya cover high degree of biodiversity regions. 3 hotspots in India, Western Ghats and Sri Lanka, Indo-Burma and Himalaya. The total biodiversity hotspots cover less than 2% of the Earth's surface. They cover only 2% of the Earth's surface. Yet, they harbor a large number of species, and protection of these hotspots can reduce the ongoing mass extinction to 30%. Next is the biodiversity rich regions are legally protected as biosphere reserves, national parks, and sanctuaries. These three are the next method of in situ conservation, and in India there are 14 biosphere reserves, 90 national parks, and 448 wildlife sanctuaries. The last type of in situ conservation is sacred groves, in which tracts of forest are set aside and all the trees and wildlife within these tracts of forest are venerated and given total protection. Examples of sacred groves in India are the Khasi and Jaintia hills in Meghalaya, Aravali hills of Rajasthan, Western Ghat regions of Karnataka and Maharashtra, Sarguja, Chanda, and Bastar areas of Madhya Pradesh. The sacred groves in Meghalaya are the last refugees for a large number of rare and threatened plants, and these plants and animals, they are going to be extinct if not given proper conservation. Now let us learn about ex situ conservation, that is off-site. In this type of conservation, the threatened plants and animals, they are taken out from their natural habitat and placed in special settings where they can be protected and given special care. Examples are zoological parks, botanical gardens, and wildlife safari parks all serve the purpose of ex situ conservation, in which the threatened animals or plants are taken out from their natural habitat and they are given proper care and protection in another different atmosphere or setting. The measures of ex situ conservation goes beyond these enclosures. The different methods are gametes of threatened species are preserved in viable and fertile conditions for very long periods using cryopreservation techniques. We have studied cryopreservation techniques in chapter 2. It is a method of cooling and storing cells, tissues and organs in liquid nitrogen at a temperature of minus 196 degrees Celsius. Second approach is the eggs can be fertilized in vitro. Plants can be propagated using tissue culture methods, and seeds of different genetic strains of commercially important plants. They are kept for long periods in seed banks. The conservation of biodiversity is a collective responsibility of all nations, and taking into concern, many conventions were conducted. The historic convention on biological diversity was called as the Earth Summit. It was called as the Earth Summit, and it was held in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil in the year 1992. And in this Earth Summit, all nations pledged to take appropriate measures for conservation of biodiversity and sustainable utilization of its benefits. The second summit was called as the World Summit, and it was based on sustainable development, which was held in Johannesburg, South Africa in the year 2002. In this summit, 190 countries pledged their commitment to reduce the current rate of biodiversity loss at global, regional, and local levels by the year 2010. So, dear children, in this module, we had learned the different approaches to conserve biodiversity, namely in situ and XC2. We also learned about the different summits conducted by the nations worldwide in order to conserve the biological diversity. Thank you.